Hello and welcome to day 3. My name is Jen and I'm so happy to have you joining me for this practice. So today we are focusing on inner thighs and hamstrings. So the hamstrings are those muscles in the back of the legs. Inner thighs include all of our adductor muscles. So we're going to focusing on loosening those muscle groups up and kind of working on the mobility of that region of the body. So with that, same props as before. You can have a strap close by in case you need it. Have your yoga block. If you don't have your yoga block, grab a pillow or blanket. Just having some prop close by in case you need it. As always, there is a link below for music. So if you want to play a playlist, you can pause the video, play some music along with it. That can always help you get more centered into the flow. And with that, we will get started. And today we are going to start in child's pose. So I will demonstrate. So turning with the head facing the front of the mat, you can take your knees out as wide as you need to. And we'll just start to crawl the arms forward, letting the forehead rest down on the mat. Now if you're really tight to start off and you want to slip a block below your forehead, you can look like this. Or if you need to put a pillow or blanket kind of in between the legs just to soften that tension through the inner thighs, then that's okay too. All right, so starting to settle in, letting the forehead rest. You can relax the elbows down here even. We'll close the eyes and start to focus on that inhale and exhale in and out of the nose. So in child's pose, you can really feel that expansion of the rib cage. So you take that inhale, take the breath all the way through the belly, but also trying to fill in the back space in the back part of the ribs. And in keeping with the breath, I want you to take a mental and physical check-in. So as you're still sitting in child's pose, just doing a scan of the body, noticing any places we're holding tension, if you have any painful spots, noticing that, so taking inventory. And seeing how we feel mentally. So doing a mental check-in, where is your energy at? Have any consistent thoughts been coming up? And then if the emotion is one that we like to frame as negative, don't feel like you have to have joy or peace or a necessarily positive emotion. Just notice where you're actually at. Not trying to change that, just noticing. We'll take a few more breaths in child's pose and we'll start to move. So if you want to start pressing the palms into the mat, start lifting those elbows up off the floor. You can start to make your child's pose a little more active, so maybe even pressing into the hands to put more weight back, so pressing the hips towards the heels. And with that next inhale, go ahead and tiptoe the hands over to the left side of your mat. We'll stack the right hand on top of the left hand, and then start to push some weight back into the right hip. So we're lengthening down the whole right side of the body. Keeping with that inhale and exhale in and out of the nose. And then start to walk the hands back through center and then over to the right. This time stacking the left hand on top of the right, press back into the left hip. And then very slowly bring it back to center, and we'll start to rock ourselves forward, making our way into our tabletop. You can place any pillow or props off to the side. And then we'll take those hands out nice and wide as cued before. All 10 fingers are spread out. And then you want to feel like all 10 fingers are gently working into the mat, creating almost a suction cup for the center of the palm. Then with that, we'll take a few cat-cows so the belly starts to fall towards the floor. We open up wide across the heart, look up. And then as we exhale, we start to round out the spine, drawing that belly button in towards the body, letting the head hang heavy. Inhale, sinks the belly down. Open the heart, look up. And exhale to round out the spine. Push the mat away. One last time, inhale. And then exhale. Awesome. Then from here, we're just going to take some hip circles. So you're going to bring the pelvis forward. Then take those hips over to the right, pushing back into the right hand corner, back to the left hand corner, left side of the mat, and then forward. And I want you to really take it slow so you can feel into any tight places along the hip joint. We'll take 3 going one direction, then we'll reverse it. So just taking it at your own pace. Really feel into which tight spots, like my outer left hip is really tight. So just taking note. Keeping breath with movement, finishing this final circle going this way. Then going the other way. So starting to push to the left side of the mat, back left hand corner. Back of the mat, right hand corner, right side, and forward. Can always add a cushion under the knees if needed. And finishing that third one off. Beautiful, and then once you get there, we're gonna come up tall on the knees. So once again, the blanket needs to go under, feel free. And we're gonna start to bring that left leg out to the side. So not directly, but almost at a little diagonal from our bodies. And you can have the toe pointed forward or maybe even pointed along that diagonal line. So see what feels good for that hip joint. Everyone's gonna look a little bit different on their placement, just seeing where that hip joint feels comfortable. And then from there, we're gonna inhale those arms up overhead and then taking it towards that extended leg, just for a moment. So if that's a little too much on balance, you can always have your hands on your hips. Returning back into center and then bringing the hands in front of the body. We're gonna do a little rocking forward and back so we get a little bit deeper into that hip joint. Should feel a nice line of pull all down that inner thigh. And returning back up overhead. Pull the hands into the heart, bring that left leg in, and then we'll take the other side. So using any support you need to get into position. Finding that sweet spot for your right leg. So maybe not directly to the side, you can come a little bit forward if needed, figuring out what foot placement feels better for your knee, your hip. And then hands on the hips or overhead. I like to interlace my fingers here, that's an option. And then just taking a side bend towards that extended leg, so towards the right. And inhaling back to center, bringing the hands in front of the body, and then finding that forward to backwards rock. So you can make the rocks really small, you can make them really large, just seeing what feels good. And then returning back up overhead. Pull the hands into the heart as you bring that right leg back, a moment of balance. Returning to tabletop just to set us up for a downward facing dog. So bringing those knees hip distance apart, tucking the toes, and then sitting those hips up and back. So making sure all 10 fingers are spread wide. Make sure you can shake your head yes and no. A little more weight going on the index and thumb finger, making sure we dial those inner elbows towards our head, and then start to shake out and loosen the bottom half of the body. So warming up those hamstrings, rocking, or bending each knee back and forth, pedaling it out. Then looking forward, we're very slowly gonna walk those feet up to meet the hands. Bring the feet hip distance apart, let the knees bend as much as you need to let the full upper body relax. Could grab opposite elbow, sway it out. Taking an easy forward fold. Releasing the elbows. Then very slowly start to roll it up. Taking your time. And once you make it up to standing, go ahead and reach those arms fully up overhead. Pulling the hands into the heart. And then finding our Tadasana mountain pose. So staying facing the front of the mat, I'll turn to you just so you can see me. So feet hip distance apart, lifting those inner arches, tightening the thighs, turning the palms towards the front of the mat. Feeling light on our feet, feeling a lot of engagement and a lot of muscles we don't typically use when we stand still. Holding in that strong mountain pose. One more breath. Then bringing the hands to the hips. We're going to step that right foot back to the middle of the mat. Adjusting that front foot forward slightly so we have about this distance with the feet. That back foot's going to be at a slight 45-degree angle. And then the hands on the hips are going to be used to kind of keep those hips tracking forward. So we'll notice that if we're starting to twist out of it as we start to come forward. So we're trying to create that hamstring stretch. This is pyramid pose. So if you're right here and you already feel it, hang out right here. If you want to go down a little lower, you can. You can use a block, so coming right to a block if needed. Just make sure you're not locking the knee all the way back. That's no good for the knee joint. Keep dialing that right hip forward and keep using that inhale and exhale to help you out. If you took it down to the floor, go ahead and bring your hands back to your hips, and then we'll all stay right here. You're going to bring that right hand to the outside of the left leg, and then see if you can do a little baby twist. So you might feel that really lighting up in the hip. You might feel it still in that hamstring. Make sure you're not pressing any pressure on the knee, just finding a little trunk rotation. And then unwinding back forward, hands to hips, slowly lift, rise it up. And we'll take the other side, so step that right foot forward, and then step that left foot back, adjusting your stance, feet are hip distance apart, and about this distance, front to back. Put the hands on the hips, back foot's at a slight 45-degree angle, and then very slowly taking it forward. So noticing that that left hip wants to start to spin out, keep dialing it forward. Make sure we're not locking the knee, and then see if you need to keep the hands on the hips or lower down. If we're lowering down and we look like this and we're just rounding, I'd much rather you look like this. Hands on the hips. So using your block as needed. And then focus on that inhale and exhale. And bringing the hands to the hips if they're not already. Coming up about halfway, and then bringing that left hand across the hook to the outer right leg. Turn your chest just enough to create that different stretch. Maybe getting it in the right hip or a little bit more in that outer hamstring. Then slowly unwinding to the front, rise and lift it up. And this time we're just gonna turn all the way to face that left edge of our mat. I'm gonna have you first turn the toes out to about a 45-degree angle, and bringing the hands to the hips. So as we start to take it down, we're gonna come into our Malasana, our goddess squat. I want you to look at that knee to foot alignment. So if you are like this and your knees are nowhere near where your feet are lined up, you're going to need to adjust your stance some. So the knees should be able to open up to the distance of those feet so that we're protecting our inner knees, not putting too much pressure on that front or medial side. Once you find your sweet spot, we're gonna take a little flow here. So you're gonna inhale to straighten the legs, reach the arms up overhead, and then exhale to bring the hands to the heart as we drop down into the hips. Then inhale, arms reach up overhead. Exhale to bend the knees as we bring the hands to the chest. Maybe dropping a little lower each time, finding that sweet spot. Inhale, reach it up, extend the legs up. Exhale to bend. Let's see, one more. Inhale to reach. And then exhale to bend. Beautiful. Coming up, keep the hands right where they are, and we'll bring them to the hips together. Turn those toes towards the edge of the mat so they're facing forward now. And we're gonna take a little side lunge. So you're just gonna start to bend into your right knee. Now this is gonna be option one. So if you're right here, you're already feeling some opening, that is your spot to hang out. If you wanna take it a little lower, you can drop the hands down, and then full version of the pose, you can see if you wanna take a full side lunge, kicking that left foot up, bringing the hands either to the floor, or maybe you can bring them in at the heart. So that's just the full option, so you can take what feels good in your body. If you're going all the way down, it's gonna turn that right foot out slightly. That is okay. Let's take 2 more breaths wherever you're at. And then sweeping it back up to center. So passing through, and now I'll take the other side. So bending into the left knee, lengthening the right. Staying right here, option one. Option two, maybe lowering to a block or the floor. And then option three, if you want to try the full pose, is to turn the right toes up, dropping fully into a deep squat for that left leg. Really gets the inner thigh, so find just what's gonna turn on that stretch for you. Couple breaths here. I like to find a point of balance. It can be a little balance challenge here as well. And then slowly making our way back up to center. Then from here, we're gonna turn those right toes to the front edge of the mat. We're gonna keep that back foot still pointed forward. Bringing the arms open, we're gonna create a letter T, and we're gonna take triangle pose. So you'll start to reach that right hand forward till you can't go anymore, and then slowly lowering it down to land either on the right leg or a block, or maybe the floor. Making sure we're not locking the right knee, and then working on opening our chest fully open to that left side of the mat. Gaze can go up to the top hand, or you can keep it down and just find a point of focus if it's more of a balanced posture for you. And then what we don't want to see is just that tipping forward or that arm like cranking back without the chest being able to rotate open with it. Let's do one more inhale. Bring that left hand to the left hip, slowly lift it up. And we'll take the other side, turning the right toes in, then the left toes go to the back edge of the mat. Bring the arms open to a letter T. And then start reaching the left hand till it can't go anymore towards that back of the mat, landing it down to either land on the left leg at any point, dropping to a block, or maybe you can reach the floor. Wherever you're at, keep opening that chest up. Gaze can go to that top hand if that option is available. And then bring that right hand to the right hip, slowly lift it up. And we'll start to wiggle those toes in until the feet come together. And then stepping to the top edge of our mat. Moving any props out of the way. Finding our Tadasana mountain pose. Then inhale, those arms reach up overhead. Exhale to bend the knees slightly as you melt it forward. We'll do one halfway lift. Inhale, slide the hands up the legs. And then exhale to drop it down. You're gonna take one final pose in a more standing shape, and then we'll take it down to the floor. So we're gonna step those right toes back. You can stay in high lunge if you need to, or if it's okay on the knee, drop that back leg down. So you can slip a pillow or blanket under the back leg if needed. Then I like to put my block under my right hand for this one. If you don't have a block, maybe grabbing your pillow. I just think it helps keep my chest lifted a little bit more. So the first pose is to put some weight into that front leg, open up through the chest, pull in that belly, creating a stretch in the front of that right hip. And then as we exhale, we're gonna take the weight back, and then maybe we keep the toes down, maybe we can lift those left toes up as we rock it back, stretching into that hamstring. So we're gonna take 3 of those. Inhale to come forward, lifting your heart, pulling in that belly, and then exhale to rock it back. Pulling those left toes up if you can, it intensifies the stretch. And then one more time. Shifting weight forward, lifting the heart. And then exhale to round it back. And then coming forward, we're gonna do one final stretch here, bringing that left hand to the inside of the left leg, gently pressing it open. Maybe you even peel that big toe, inner heel off the floor, off the mat. and then returning it into center. Tuck the toes of the back leg. We're gonna step it forward, and we're gonna take the other side. So left foot steps back. You can stay in a tall lunge if you need to, if it's really hard to put pressure on the knee, and you'll just look like this as we go back and forth, or dropping that left knee down using cushioning as needed. I'm gonna bring my block under my left hand, or you can take a pillow. And then starting to lift the heart, pulling that belly in. And then as you exhale, we'll start to rock it back, maybe pulling the right toes up off the floor. Inhale to rock it forward. And then exhale to rock it back. Inhale to shift forward. And then exhale to shift it back. Inhale to come forward. And then starting to bring that right hand up to the right knee, pressing it open just where you can, possibly lifting that big toe and inner heel, that right foot off the mat. And then dialing it back in, tuck and lift the back foot. This time just stepping it back, lowering the knees, and we'll take our child's pose for a few breaths. Bring the knees open as wide as you can. Big toes can come together to touch. Let the forehead rest down. Last breath, a big inhale. And then shifting forward to come to a seated position. One more seated posture. We are going to extend out that left leg, bending the right leg in so the right foot can land right on that inseam of the left. If you need to put a pillow or block underneath your hips to allow your spine to sit up taller, take that option. And then we're just going to turn our torso towards that extended leg, pulling the toes back of the left foot, and then very slowly crawling it forward. So if you're right here, you can hang out right here. If you can lower down a little bit more, you can find that sweet spot. Couple breaths on this side. And the more we pull those toes back and tighten the top of our thigh, the more we can open up the hamstring in the back. Begin to tiptoe it up. And we'll switch sides, extending that right foot out, bending the left knee, landing that left foot right at the inseam of the right, turning our chest towards that extended leg, pulling the toes back as we tiptoe it forward. And then slowly starting to bring it back. We'll turn back towards that long edge of our mat. We're gonna make our way down onto our back. So bringing the hands in behind the legs, slowly rolling it down. And then giving a moment for that low back just to kind of settle in after all the postures we've taken. We'll do one final lay down pose before taking it to our final meditation, our Shavasana. So bringing those feet together at the center of the mat. And we're just gonna start to let those knees fall open, maybe bringing the bottoms of the feet together to touch. You can keep your hands just resting on that belly space at the hips, or if you're feeling some pinching, you can make fists and slip those fists right at where the glute line is, and that can give a little pressure release. So I had to do that for a long time because I have really tight inner thighs. So that made it a lot less intense of a stretch. It felt like it was actually stretching the right muscle instead of causing cramping. So you can always take that option. So wherever you are, closing the eyes, we're going to take a few extra breaths in this pose. See if you can keep that mind focused internally. So the breath going all the way deep down into the belly. And starting to bring the hands under the legs. I like to use my hands to kind of assist. Just bringing those knees back together. You can keep those eyes closed even here. If you need any final poses, take them. If you're ready, making our way into our Shavasana, so taking any final wiggles we need to take. Tucking those shoulder blades a little under. I like to bring my arms out wide. Taking up as much space as you need. Then maybe doing one final clench of every muscle, so tightening. And then really letting the whole body just surrender to the floor. We're going to spend our last few minutes in silence, soaking in all the benefits of the practice, including just letting the mind sit in more silent stillness, taking us out of that busy fight or flight mind. So we're no longer forcing that deep intentional breath. You're just being an observer of your natural breathing. And then doing a check-in of the muscles across the forehead, the jaw, softening your tongue if it's pressing against the roof of the mouth. In with the hands, the arms, the spine, the hips, the knees, the feet. And keep guiding those thoughts back to the present moment as many times as you need. We'll take our silent 2 minutes. Start to deepen your breathing. If you feel like you need more time, stay as long as you need. If you're ready, start to wiggle out those toes, those fingers. Gently nodding the head side to side. And then slowly bending one knee up at a time. We'll roll on to whichever side is most comfortable. Just pausing on our left hand side or right hand side. And doing that mental, physical check-in again, seeing how you feel now compared to the beginning of class. Noticing any different sensations, any different energies flowing through. And once you're ready, make your way to seated. Closing the eyes, pull the hands together at the heart. And ending on a final note of gratitude, being thankful for yourself for showing up to make the space and time to work on that mind, body, and spirit. Take our final breath all together. So inhaling through the nose and then sighing it out of the mouth. So inhale in, sigh it out. Thank you for joining me in this day 3 yoga flow. Namaste. Thank you all. Hope we're feeling good. Please leave me any comments, including any questions or suggestions. Or if you're wondering any questions about any of the postures, please let me